Martin Davis from Sierra Aquity. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you, Paul.
Awesome to have you on board, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Easy as, mate. Easy as. Now, can you just kick us off with a bit of a quick rundown on you and your business and how it started? So I'm fascinated to hear this.
Well, the Sierra Aquity is now a well-established last-mile logistics company. We help our clients with their on-site distribution and control of all sorts of inventory and tools and so on. So the Aquity store system allows the clients to manage their materials and control who's got what, when, where, why, and record all of that. It started out, I had a business failure. I was an early pioneer in the internet industry in Australia. Took on the likes of Telstra and Optus as a competitor in the wholesale market. And two guys and an idea, in a couple of years, we captured 10% of the internet marketplace. And then along came the tech boom, tech bust.
Right.
In about 2000, 2001. And we sold our company to a group of high flyers in Southeast Asia. They bankrupted themselves, bankrupted us, and gave us the company back all in the space of 6 months.
Wow.
So we sort of went away with our tail between our legs a bit and sat down as a group of four of us that were running the old Paradox company and said, what are we going to do? So we put together a new company and we searched really long and hard to find a name that meant nothing and came up with the name of Sierra Group.
Yeah.
And then looked for a business. And one of our guys came up and he'd been on a conference in New Zealand, I think, and somebody showed him industrial vending machines. And he got excited. He'd been looking for a business for years to be the basis of a rental business. And he came back to me and said, oh, look what I found. Found this thing. And I go, oh, yeah, I can see there's probably a business opportunity there. So we got stuck into it. Been running now for 21, 22 years.
Yeah.
We actually were the company that bought Industrial Vending, the concept, to Australia. It was reasonably new in the US. And when we started focusing on, as they did in the US, on consumables and including stationery, office supplies. Now, if you can think of the value chain for any company operating, you've got a bunch of little bits and pieces you use that you have to use.
Yep.
And this includes things like safety gear has become one of the staples of the business. So gloves and glasses.
Yep.
Office supplies that have to be about as far down the tree as you can go in a value.
Yep. So
we got stuck into it, and we started with a focus of providing more in use value to the client than we took in charge value. That came out of one of the personal development guys that I've been working with.
Yep.
And we very quickly established that if vending's well done, it's really profitable for the client, but it only handles this tiny portion of indirect materials. So our value proposition to the client was fantastic. You spend $1 with us, your bottom line will increase by more than that dollar.
Okay.
That worked all the time. We had companies, for example, that set a target. Everybody wanted to try it. Those that did want to try, they wanted a trial. And we had a company in South Australia that said, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. We'll set ourselves a very modest target. I can't remember what the number was, but savings for a year in consumption. We achieved that saving for them in the first 6 weeks.
Wow.
So that's return on investment was, I think theirs was something like 500 or 600%.
Yep.
And from my perspective, I couldn't see why they wouldn't beat my door down then. You got something that's helping you return 500%. Why wouldn't you want more? But they didn't. And the answer to that really was, we think, because the stuff we were dealing with, although it was a great saving, in their total bottom line was almost negligible.
Right.
So a couple of things I've always loved about the business as we built it is that we actually solve real problems for our customers. And because we implement change in process, these things stay solved. I was involved in many years of my career as manager with Telstra in a previous life. You go through humongous great change processes, and lo and behold, 6 months down the track, you're right back where you started from, because people have forgotten about the process and they had to do something different and they weren't invested in it and so on. Yep. So we would take a process, work with the customer to change what it was and then automate it. And that meant that the process stayed changed and they kept getting results, which was fantastic. Yep. And the other thing that I've always loved about it, I detest waste in any form, and we save lots of waste. We help reduce massive amounts of waste.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it?
One little story on a client we've got here in Perth. They've got a fairly significant engineering workshop and big car park because they employ 300 or 400 people. And when I first rocked up there to talk to them about it, I could not put my boots on the ground in the car park without standing on at least one pair of disposable corded earplugs. So these are the earplugs that with a little cord to dangle around your neck.
Yep.
These things at the time, this is 10 or 12 years ago, and they're still a client. These things were $2, $2.50 a pair. And there were thousands of them on the ground. Within 6 months of us going in, when walking across the car park, oh, there's a pair over there, there's another one yet. I can see 3. This waste had disappeared. People weren't, because the standard thing, they come out of the, finish their shift, they walk across to their car, and as they walk, they just chuck the ear.
That's right. Yep.
Now they put them on their bench and pick them up the next day and put them back in again.
That's the way it should be.
So that sort of stuff, we just got rid of a bunch of waste, and I love that.
So how difficult was it for you to go from a really bad situation 20 years ago to get your head and heart back in the game for a new gig?
Well, that's the first bit. It was soul destroying watching 5 years' work of a profitable business be gobbled up by a practitioner in the art of killing businesses. They call them administrators, but we think they're actually undertakers.
Yes.
They moved into our business. They told us on day 2 or 3 that our revenue was effing worthless because they actually had to go and get it rather than it come to them on a platter.
Yep.
And in the process, I'd worked with these guys over a period of a couple of months because we knew we were in dire straits. And I'd restructured verbally all of our contracts with our suppliers to take us from being massively in debt to just over break even.
Okay.
But I needed help with the legals on that. So we checked with the administrators. Yes, they had a legal toolkit that they can enforce contract change. I said, okay, go for it. And within 2 weeks, the business was dead. Everyone was sacked. So, yeah, that was pretty tough.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
We got together with a few of us. We looked around. We found this thing, started to delve into it. The more I looked at it, the more legs it seemed to have. Our first customer was Australia Post for office supplies in the GPO in Perth. Yep. And that worked brilliantly to the point where they wanted to deploy it out amongst all their shops to sell stuff to people as a typical vending machine.
Yeah, okay.
That never happened. That got a bit hard.
Yep.
But we moved on and we did another trial with a group in the WA Public Service and saved them 80-something% of their consumption budget. Brilliant success again. But government change and public servants saying, no, it wasn't my idea, therefore it's no good. That was all pretty tough, but my biggest issue in the early days was there were 4 of us in this business. I was the only one trying to do it full time, and the other 3 were part time.
Ah, right.
So we had a management by committee, and everything I came up with to try and get the thing moving to generate revenue so I could live, they said no to. So eventually I just turned around to them and said, I quit. I can't do this anymore. I've got a family to support.
Yep.
They said, you can't do that. And then 2 hours later came back to me and said, well, if you give us all the money that's in the bank plus a bit more, you can buy it out if you think so much of it. You run it.
Okay.
Did that.
Yep.
And within, this has been going 5 years by this stage. And I hadn't had an income for 5 years, which was pretty silly.
Yeah, wow.
Within the space of 2 months, I had an income. I took control. So one of my biggest learnings was take control. If you've got partners, don't manage by committee, make sure that they're either on board or you get some different partners.
Is there any other learnings from that period that you take forward as a key recommendation to anyone else looking to start a business or being in business?
The other big one, I think, Paul, was I guess in hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yes,
It was
it is.
very obvious that our target market, we were doing this fantastic job, and without exception, the product savings, when we turned around and put a system in for customers on consumables of any sort, the savings in consumption were typically 70 to 80%.
Right.
So their consumption dropped down to less than a quarter of what it used to be.
Yep.
Take away the cost of our machine or our system. We rented this system to them. We maintained the machines. They didn't have to worry about any of that. If it broke, it was our issue, unless they did something diabolic. And we've had plenty of those.
As you do.
Fun stories that won't fit into our half hour.
Yep.
So we did this fantastic job and a fantastic rate of return. But if you look at a company like Australia Post and stationery office supplies, yes, they saved a bucket of money, but in terms of their bottom line, it was a barely discernible blip. And therefore, senior management gave it that barely discernible blip level of input. So if I'd been able to see a bit earlier that we really needed to expand out and get into bigger areas of their turnover, we'd have been better off.
Yeah, great learning, isn't it?
So look at what the market's doing, what you're doing, and how relevant, I guess. And that sort of feels like that's pretty specific to me, to this vending industry. But we took the toolkit that we had with the gear that we had and the system we had, and we applied it to all sorts of different things. And that's one of the reasons why we grew, solving real problems for real people.
Yep.
The other thing, I guess, from just thinking about it, thinking out aloud, is that right at the outset, when we started in this business, there were 3 major suppliers of industrial vending here in the US.
Yep.
Therefore, 3 major suppliers in the world, because that's where it came from.
Yep.
We did a deal with one of them. We got an exclusive agency for Australia and New Zealand. And they said to us when we had the first phone call, we don't do exclusive agencies, but Australia, where's that? Sort of thing. Like, yeah, you can have an exclusive agency because we don't know where it is and we don't care. And I immediately started to work. I thought, I don't want a business built on one supplier. That's just too silly. And we went to the States and we went and saw the other 2 major suppliers. One of them was prepared to work with us on the basis that once you start working with me, you won't want to deal with these other guys anyway. And the other guy just said, no way, you're either exclusive with us or we don't deal with you.
Yeah, okay.
So I got a deal with 2 of the 3, but we never invoked the second one properly. I guess the business grew much slower than we had hoped. This was part of this 5 years of very slow growth due to disagreements within the company.
Yep.
And I never invoked the second company. So certainly it's been a learning, because we had a breaking up with the one supplier just after I sold the business to my partner.
Right.
It caused a lot of grief. We've ended up being much stronger as a result, but it was not a good deal at the time. So don't ever put all your eggs in one basket, I guess, is the answer.
That's a good lesson, isn't it?
Well, it's such an obvious one, and one that I was very cognizant of, but didn't follow through.
And look, you touched on a point before about your business model, excuse me, was such a minor blip in your customers' business model. You could get the best savings for them, but it was such a little blip on their bottom line, it didn't have an impact. And I sort of see that a lot with business owners, that they get almost fixated on one little thing that they've got to fix before they can move to the big one, or they can move to the biggest ones to help them move forward faster. How has that experience helped you and your business move forward more quickly once you got past that?
Well, let's just open up the whole gamut. So if you look at what we're dealing with, we still deal with the same sort of stuff.
Yep.
So we're dealing with inventory, and we've rebadged ourselves. And the architect of this is my partner, Tim, who bought the business. And he was the architect of a lot of things along the way that took me out of my little confined head.
Okay.
When he joined me, which he joined me just after I took my first income out of the business, I needed help.
Yep.
I wanted him. I'd worked with him in the previous business. He'd gone off to the UK with his family, but he came back, and I'd been on his case for a couple of years. And he finally said to me, is that offer still open? So I started paying him the same little wage that I had. And one of the first things he did, we were dealing with a big multinational company. Our business model was we own the gear, the system, we rent it to the client. Yep. And provided and I guess it was ahead of its time at that time, as a business as a service. This particular company said, we don't rent, we buy. And I just sort of went, oh, well, that's too bad. Tim looked at me and said, if they want to buy, we sell. And he went away and did 10 minutes of work and came back to me and said, this is what we're going to do. I looked at him and said, oh, okay.
Yep.
And so we got the customer, and that's a long time ago. They're still a customer. So to do stuff like that, if the customer wants and you can make it work, then make it work. Don't be so fixated. I'm an engineer by training, and I'd worked out this is the right way to go, and that was the way it's going to be. Except that's not the right way to go.
I'm sure that's a very popular choice amongst business owners to find that out.
So to be a bit more flexible and agile. If it's what the customer wants and you can make it work within your business model and make money out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any of your core philosophies.
Yep.
My core philosophies, which I will not bend. One of those is that everything has to be a win-win-win.
Yep.
It's not a win for me, a win for my client, and a win for our suppliers. I'm not interested.
Yep.
Not in dog-eat-dog stuff. Yep. So provided it fits within your core beliefs, then go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. You've obviously, Martin, had a fairly interesting journey, shall we say, in terms of the highs are high and the lows are low. If that's a fair summation of it.
Yes.
How have you balanced that personally to keep your mental health and your physical health and your family life in check?
Well, I think I've been particularly bad at that.
Right.
I think my work, how do we put it, personal life, personal life and business life, I think there wasn't one. There wasn't a personal life for a long while. For example, I subjected my wife to 5 years with no income. We got through okay. The family was never, we were never broke, but I chewed up most of my accumulated savings and such like. And yep. Certainly my teenage daughters didn't get what they might have otherwise had. And I'm a bit sorry about that.
Yep.
But I finally saw the light. And since then, we've sort of not looked back. But I don't think I've ever been terribly good. I worked from home through most of this time because some of the stuff I learned out of my previous business was overheads are killers. And my business partner in the previous venture, the one that went broke, was really big on big talk and big appearance and big expenditure. We took an office block on at one stage, a whole bloody block for a team of 30 people. It was, there were things there I knew, well, I felt were wrong at the time, and I didn't stand up and say so.
Yep.
When we came to the new business, said we're going, this thing's going to run on a shoestring. And we didn't spend any money we didn't have to. But that meant we worked from home. We were very early invokers of the work from home. This is back in 2002. And internet working and remote meetings and such like. But that made the work-life balance that's more difficult because you never leave work. So I don't think I'm a very good example for business partners to say how to do this.
But you've still got a business, like you're still enthused with your business, right? You've still got a passion for it. Yeah.
So I do some stuff outside, like back in the internet business, I remember I learned to fly during that time.
Yeah, wow, okay.
I remember one particular afternoon when this was going through the administration process, and it was a not nice time.
No.
Got to 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I had a huge week, and I said to my staff, I rang the flying school down at Jandakot.
Yep.
Said, is my plane available? They knew which one it was, and I said, yep. I said, right, okay, book it for me. Went out on the floor at 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon, said to the staff, have a fantastic weekend, lock up as you leave, will you? I'm going flying.
Beautiful.
I went down to the airport, jumped in this little aerobatic trainer, took it up into the training area and beat the daylights out of it with aerobatics for 25, 30 minutes.
Yep.
I came down feeling fantastic. So another outlet in life I think is pretty important.
You've got to have the outlets, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah. And being in business is not all consuming. It's that. Right?
It certainly can be all consuming, and it needs not to be.
Yeah, that's right.
It's something you love and it's fun. My mind just goes to, if I've got a problem to solve, I'm still working in the business. I mean, it's 5 years since I sold it.
Yep.
And I'm doing the fun stuff. I've learned stuff over the last few years that I had no concept that I.
Exactly.
I now program microprocessors to control vending machines.
Fantastic.
Building automated systems. It's just good fun.
Yep, you're an engineer. Of course you're going to do that.
So when my mind gets onto something like that, that's not work, and I'll come in the office and just jot things down or start beavering away just because it's fun. That's not so good for the rest of the family. So you need stuff that you can do together. So yes. I'm not really a good person to talk about this, I don't think. Yes, I'm sorry.
But in a way you are a great person to talk to about it, because you've been through such highs and such lows, and you've been through the tough times. And the thing that's probably brought you through is having that release from work and having that break and having a great wife and family as well.
I like doing people think extreme things. I decided a few years ago, it's more than a few now, 6 or 8 years ago, that before I hung up my boots, I wanted to have a hot car. Never had I started off riding motorbikes.
Yep.
So I did some research, and the first thing that came to mind about a good car was a BMW M series.
Yep.
I went and found an M3 second-hand one from the local hot rod dealer, the Barbagellos in Perth.
Yeah.
Had it out for a weekend. They gave it to me. I took it out. Took it back because I thought it was just too much of a handful. Can't drive this thing on the road. It was all right on the track, maybe. But I went and bought a new one, a slightly smaller than that. Ended up putting that on the track, just going up and beating the daylights out of that on the track. It's good fun.
Yeah, awesome.
So stuff like this is a good release.
Yeah.
And gives you things to think about and focus on other than what the wretched customer wants or doesn't want at the time, or the customer's accountant who says, yes, I know you provide us with good value, but we need you to reduce your cost to us by 25%. Try now just say, well, which bit of the system don't you want?
Yep, that's right. That's right. It's the way it works.
Costs.
Yeah, yeah. All these learnings along the way, eh, Martin? Makes life interesting, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And I sort of think that as business owners, there's got to be the learnings and some of the hard times along the way to get us to focus on what's really important and what we really want to do and what we do well. I think you've hit that point.
Well, there's nothing like a medical emergency to make you think about what's real.
Yes, I've had one of those myself. It really resets the mindset in the space of about half a second, doesn't it?
Yeah, ending up in casualty and such like, and being having a cardio the zap on the chest.
Oh, okay.
All sorts of stuff can happen and turn up in life.
I had a heart attack myself at the age of 53, so that was a bit of a shock to me.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Mine was. Yeah, so it sort of resets the mindset, as you say, in about half a second.
Go out and live and enjoy.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Martin Davis, thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed our chat, and it'd be great for other business owners to have a listen, because there's lots of learnings in there for people. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.